Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sorting Hat Podcast. I am your host, Michael Barryte, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Katie Reed.
Let's do some sorting!
Today, we are going to be sorting types of pie.
Oh man, I'm so excited and a little bit hungry.
And for those unfamiliar with what this is, unlike the Sorting Hat in the regular Harry Potter books and films, we are going to not be sorting people, but as we've already suggested, items that are not living in any regard.
We have the rule of thumb that anything and everything can be sorted by the Sorting Hat, and we will be taking the role of the Sorting Hat today.
Yes. I am a Ravenclaw. Katie is a Hufflepuff.
Hufflepuff?
Just to give you a gauge of what might be dictating some of our logic along those lines, there is obviously inherent bias, but we're trying to be as fair and even keel as we can in our discussion as we sort these pies.
He gave me a very direct, pointed look as he says that. He actually, off the air, suggested that I have a liberal media type bias against Slytherins. And I'm here to say that's not true. I'm just speaking the truth of the matter about the Slytherin group as a whole people. But I will try to tone down any hostility that I feel towards them.
For both my own and our listeners' sakes, I thank you for that, and also outing me on off-air conversations.
Well, I didn't even tell them about your girl troubles.
Yeah, I'm perpetually single.
Whoa, okay, hold on.
So let's get into pies.
Ladies, hit them up in the DM, slide in there.
All right, Katie. So we're going to start, because we're entering the lovely fall season, with perhaps the most seasonally based pie, the pumpkin pie.
Oh, okay, cool. Pumpkin pie. It's a gourd.
The pumpkin is indeed a gourd, yes. I am of the mindset, and just going into this, it's already like a little steeped, but I do feel that this one is appropriate based on its connotation. Mm-hmm. I am of the mindset that the pumpkin pie is a Hufflepuff.
Now, I'm going to tell you something controversial, something that may surprise you and some of our listeners.
Especially based on what we previously just discussed, I can already anticipate what you're about to say.
The pumpkin pie cannot be the Hufflepuff, because Hufflepuffs are too honest. I'm going to say that the pumpkin pie is a Gryffindor.
That wasn't what I was expecting you to say. That was not at all what I was expecting you to say.
No, because I don't see the pumpkin pie as like inherently trying to deceive anyone, to be like mysterious.
Well, I'm not going off of the mystery angle that is sometimes associated with Hufflepuffs, like with your I am saying that the pumpkin pie, purely based off of where it sits in the Thanksgiving theming, which Thanksgiving is a family-based holiday. Mm-hmm. Everybody's coming together around the table. The pumpkin pie is sort of the culmination of this celebration. And Hufflepuffs are jovial individuals, big on family, also big on food, but like, it's food. I'm willing to waive that one.
No, yeah, I have a good argument against that, which I'll get to later, about which one of our pies I feel is Hufflepuffy.
We don't need to sort everything like one to one, right? Like,
oh no, I understand that. I would say that the Hufflepuff is not. I would say that the pumpkin pie cannot be a Hufflepuff, because I feel like a Hufflepuff would never say that he or she is something that they actually are not. And if you don't know this is 100% true. Almost all pumpkin pies, at least the ones that are produced in America, pumpkin pie filling is not actually made from pumpkin. It is actually made from a type of squash, I think closer to like a butternut squash. And the pumpkin canning manufacturers do this because they discovered that pumpkin texture is kind of not the best for the smooth pumpkin pie that we have all come to expect.
Pumpkin is a little bit more stringy.
Yeah. And they discovered there was a strain of squash that matches closer to the taste of pumpkin, but gives you the texture of that sort of like creamy custardy flavor experience that you want. And so I would say that it's a Gryffindor because they can sometimes be a little bit sneaky. To get what they want, they can be a little bit more on like the trickstery side.
I would
like the Weasleys.
I would actually go so far to say that based off of just your more scientific discussion of how the pumpkin pie or our current pumpkin pie came to be is actually more of a Ravenclaw than anything.
Honestly, though, we want to look at the essence of the pie itself and not necessarily like how it came to be, because that was just me unloading some knowledge on you. That's why some of your listeners think that I'm a Ravenclaw, but unfortunately my SAT scores do not reflect that.
No, and I totally get that. But based on the fact that they went through and they did a bunch of tests, figured out, we're like, oh, hey, this gourd does not jive as far as texture goes, and we are very, we're not just trying to hit the columns of flavor and sweetness. We're also thinking texture, and we're also thinking nutritional value and all of those sorts of things based on that, and also trying to align it within the realm of popular pies. I would argue that is a very calculated approach, which is something that Ravenclaws are more prone to do. They are a little bit more, while creative, which obviously in just the marketing slant of that would be deemed as such. One could also say deceptive. But I think, and this is, me even throwing my own kind under the bus, but they're being very logical about things. They're looking at it and going...
it had to have taken some sort of marketing wizard to somehow get a stronghold on an entire national holiday and say, oh yeah, this is the pie that you eat on this day.
Oh, and I'm not talking even specific to Thanksgiving at this point. I'm saying just like people identified the flavor as something that was desirable, but the texture was not. So they found a workaround. They looked at the problem and said, all right, let's make this work for everybody. And, we say it's pumpkin, but like gourd, pumpkin, they're from the same family. We're roughly doing the same thing.
Very interesting that we both came in with different answers, and now we've both reached a completely different conclusion than when we approached the subject.
Oh, most
Pumpkin
definitely.
pie, you are very controversial.
Yeah. While we haven't necessarily landed specifically on things, I still feel very much that it is now a Ravenclaw.
Yeah. Also, just thinking, like, I can't get over how just entrenched in our culture it is. Because think about, like, are any of the other pies that we're going to be talking about have their own drink that everybody's obsessed with every year?
No, but this next pie that we're going to get into definitely also has a very, I guess it's a linked connotation because we're going to apple pie.
Okay, great.
And apple pie definitely has a homebody, American way 1950s sort of vibe to it.
Heck yeah. When you have one, it's something that your grandma made for you and she put on a windowsill, and some trickster might try to come get it, and you smack their hands away and say, you silly boy, don't do that. It's a Hufflepuff of a pie.
Oh, I am so in disagreement with you
Whoa.
there. Yeah, I know, right? I'm actually going to be going with Slytherin on this one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What are your reasons?
My reasons for it are that it's a very versatile pie, and one of the traits of Slytherins are they're very like malleable to situations, and while I feel like okay, it's got a homebody sense, it's not linked to a specific thing. The apple pie is the pie that can be appreciated at any one point, but it also has a sense, and I throw this word out a lot, but it's got a sense of purity and also like a togetherness to it. And Slytherins are very much like a fixture of like there's I'd even go so far to say having apple pie a la mode, like more than any other pie, is like the way that you have this. And Slytherins are very much like, there's a specific way that we do things.
Now I'm gonna have to respectfully disagree with you on there's a very specific way to have apple pie. As anyone will tell you, there are so many ways that you can like change up apple pie. Like honestly, just the fact that that there is a specific subset of people who slice cheddar cheese over the pie.
What?
Yes.
I've never heard this.
This was more popular, in the 1960s and before that, but you can still get it at most diners.
Is this a Southern thing?
It might be a Southern thing. I'm not entirely sure. You guys let me know. But it's actually my favorite way to have apple pie.
Like a slice of cheddar cheese?
You want it to be melted. It's not just like a cold slice put on top of the pie.
Right, I assumed as much.
But yeah, cheddar, American if you don't have anything better, but I don't, go for cheddar if you got it. And it's a really great combination of like the savoriness of the cheese and the sweetness of the apples and cinnamon and sugar. It is ridiculously good. Also, on top of that, there are many different variations of the way that you would prepare an apple pie. You can have the pastry crust with the top on it. You can have one without a top on it. There's also like crumbly tops for an apple pie. Sometimes people even have a crumbly bottom. That gets into, is that even an apple pie territory? But for that reason, because someone would be so obsessed with trying different iterations of this very specific sort of food, I would have to say that would go to Hufflepuffs because we love food experimentation.
That is a fair point. I'm just to allow you to further fight for Hufflepuff, I guess.
Yeah.
Why not Gryffindor?
I feel like it's something that just because to be, and I don't want to be unkind to my own, but it's a little bit on the more basic side.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever opens up a menu and goes, "Oh my god, they're serving apple pie here." Like that's
fair.
It's like it's just there. It's dependable, and you know pretty much what to expect from it.
So you're going off of the factor that like apple pie is, while some of the change ups that can happen to it are bold, the basis of apple pie in and of itself is less bold.
There's not too much to it. It's not trying to there's no one's trying to break new ground with apple pie. Like I said, the only variation that I can think of that you haven't heard of is something that people don't even do anymore. It's more old fashioned.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we've bridged that weird territory of like food modification as well. So I guess at its core, apple pie is a less adventurous pie. Although, well, no, a lot of pie crust. I suppose pie crust specifically is like not linked necessarily to a specific pie because, like,
I'm sure even that is something that's up for for debate. Like some people are very specific about what kind of crust can go on what kind of pie.
Oh, I'm sure. And
all of those people are probably Ravenclaws.
I definitely right now I'm thinking like. Primarily, I think the crisscross.
Oh, is that lattice? Is that what you call that?
Lattice? Is that? No? Whatever.
Yeah.
One of us looks dumb in this moment.
Tell us who.
DM that information.
Slide into those DMs, ladies.
Oh, there we go. Those callbacks. Thank you, Katie, for that. I'm so lonely. So on that, I suppose going off of another potentially normal crusted pie, cherry pie.
Yeah, cherry pie. Now we're getting into something a little bit more off the beaten path. Not necessarily going to be everyone's favorite. If it just gets served, so people might go, no thanks.
It's a very, this is just a personal opinion now I'm going into, and it sometimes causes a general aversion to pies because of this very reason. I don't love syrups, and cherry pie is a very syrupy pie.
Oh yeah, no, it's a heavy dish that you are agreeing to taste when you have a cherry pie.
Like apple pie, it tends to be more like the cinnamon, and the apples are a little more dried. They aren't necessarily like when you bite into them, it's not like, oh, there's
you get
more
of
fluids.
the variation. Sometimes you get like the thick syrupy sort of apple pie, but sometimes you get something that's just almost entirely apples, and like that just like with cherries,
that's more my bag.
Yeah, cherries tends to be more like what you're thinking of,
just a goopy mess.
Yeah, they've been cooked down with usually like a simple syrup sort of thing until it's just like goopy is the word to say. But I feel like it's a very complex sort of dish. I feel like cherries in general are more Frankenstein than any sort of other fruit. If you think about it, fresh cherries compared to the canned cherries are very different sort of food. Like I'm gonna own that I came from a very working class family, and we didn't always have access to like a lot of fresh fruit. So whenever I had a fresh cherry, it was always like, what is this that I'm eating?
Right, because when you get them in a jar, it's a night and day comparison.
Yeah. Whereas like, other like apples and stuff more readily available to me. So I feel like because of that experimentation, and because it tends to be the tartar, sharper tasting of the fruit pies, I'm going to say that it's a Ravenclaw.
I saw that. The slow circling in on Ravenclaw as you were speaking. I was like, we're dancing around the subject a lot, but we were dancing around in slowly closing in circles. I would agree with that, as much as it pains me to have that pie in my house.
Wow, you said that with so much condemnation of the cherry pie.
Guys, I really like it. Well, and it's selective syrup dislike, because I'm fine with maple syrup as long as it's not like super soaked in. In moderation, I'm fine. But when it's so heavily concentrated in a pie, like a cherry pie or a blueberry pie, which we're not touching on, we're limiting ourselves in the amount of pies that we're dealing with. No, oh hell, let's deal with blueberry pie real fast, because I'm fine with saying Ravenclaw to cherry pie.
Cool. Just off the hip, because I wasn't expecting this. This is exciting new pie talk. Slytherin.
You just like, after a moment of like, well, if it's Slytherin. Let's just fall into that. Why Slytherin?
All right, and I know you told me to keep my biases in check, and I'm not saying this to be a dick, but when you eat blueberry pie in the same way that you need to be careful when you associate with Slytherins, sometimes it can have negative consequences, such as a very stained mouth. It almost looks like
for that very reason,
betrayal.
For that very reason, I think they're Gryffindors.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because Gryffindors are brash and bold and don't always consider the consequences. And like, we both were going in the same direction with blueberries of like, they stain. Like, let's not beat around the bush on that one.
And it might just be that if I'm looking at my pie biases, I think I might dislike blueberries more than the other pies that we've talked about.
I'm definitely hit or miss with blueberries. Like, for me, a blueberry needs to be firm for me to like it. I know some people who like more mushy blueberries, and I don't understand you people.
But they are very rich in antioxidants and nutrients, just the way that Slytherins tend to have many resources. So they're bringing a lot to the table when you invite them. I feel like blue is that sort of like, it's in the more like royal of colors. I know it's usually more typically associated with Ravenclaws, but for some reason it's giving me a Slytherin association in my mind.
I feel if blueberries were, while they do rub some people the wrong way, I think if they were more like tart or divisive, like I don't think very many people, while blueberries on their own might be a little more repulsive to people, I think blueberries within something is like always a draw. Like, I don't think anyone's going to be like, oh, you got blueberry muffins or blueberry pancakes. Nah. Like, I always feel that blueberries enhance an otherwise more dull item like a standard muffin or pancake.
Now, does it help us to think about that girl who got turned into a blueberry in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory? What was that girl's name?
Violet.
No.
Because it's Violet. You're turning violet.
Oh, yeah. Now, she turned into a blueberry. Which house would she be in?
Violet? I mean...
I know that she didn't have a whole lot going for her character other than, I talk like this and chews gum. Like, she didn't have a whole lot more going. And she didn't do what she was told.
Most of those kids are fairly deplorable as far as personalities go.
But I wouldn't necessarily look at Violet and go, oh, that's, a Slytherin or that's a Hufflepuff. I don't know. Maybe Gryffindor. So maybe I'm coming around to the idea of Blueberry Pie being a Gryffindor.
See, I stick with Blueberry Pie being a Gryffindor, but I do feel maybe that Violet could be a Slytherin. But yeah, I mean, she very well, like, it's so hard to tell, especially with, I mean, we've definitely deviated off of our standard course.
Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to work this out. The blueberry is a confusing pie for me to sort, which usually doesn't happen. Yeah, I'm gonna say that.
Would you concede that it is a Gryffindor?
Yeah,
I think that's
Gryffindor. Fair.
If any of you happen to have thoughts on what house Violet falls into, let us know.
That might be a future episode for us to explore.
Who knows? Like, they're fictional
all of those
characters.
Terrible children.
Fictional characters are fair game, more so than regular people's.
Yeah.
Okay, so we deviated. We've touched on pumpkin pie, apple pie, cherry pie, the surprise blueberry pie, and now we come to the pecan pie.
Slytherin.
So fast.
It's so, out of any pie, it's not even trying to give the illusion that it has anything to offer you. It's just there for itself, trying to work its way in on the pumpkin pie market during the holidays.
I see actually the pecan pie as a bit of a Ravenclaw.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm of two minds.
Mm-hmm.
There's one part of me that thinks that there's a Ravenclaw because it's like kind of being the like health pie, but it's not. Like, but just the fact that it's like, oh, there are nuts in it, so like it's the healthier pie. Like it's a weird slant. But then there's the other part because, man, it's like a doofy pie.
Doofy it may be. I don't
even want me to suggest that it's a
Hufflepuff. Like, the only way I could see it is that I could imagine more than any other house a Hufflepuff just straight up eating a bowl of sugar, which is what you're getting when you eat a
that's what I'm thinking
pie.
Is literally like a pecan pie strikes me as the stoner who went into the pantry with a pie crust and was like, hey, I've got like just the bases of a pie crust and I got some nuts and molasses. Like, I guess we can cook this.
Man, Michael Barryte's calling somebody's great grandma fucking stoner. So anybody who's related to the inventor of pecan pie, slide into his DMs.
I've just the weird recurring bit of everybody sliding into my DMs with just batshit crazy information.
I like, there is that very small part of me that is scared of the pecan pie because once in a while you take a bite out of one and there's one of those pecans that's just not right. And it's the most bitter, tannin filled, like the stuff in wine that makes your mouth feel dry experience that just like turns you off to the idea of that pie forever.
I thought you were going to be saying that there's one of those pecans that somehow didn't get softened in the cooking process.
Oh, and it can break your tooth.
And is just very, very tough.
Yeah.
And
and like it's not a popular pie.
No, it is not a popular pie.
In the Harry Potter universe, as far as I know from watching half of a movie, The Slytherins don't tend to seem like the most popular house.
They are definitely the ones who get the worst rep.
Yeah.
Based on, in large part, the fact that some of their general viewpoints are a little bit exclusionary.
Like that Professor Snape, he's probably never winning Teacher of the Year, even though he probably was giving everyone a very solid education.
How much of the Harry Potter movies did you watch?
Yo, I saw the part where they went through that wall at the train station.
Have you seen the 7th one?
Okay, I saw the first one, I saw the last one. So I understand that everybody gets married to each other like fan fiction.
We're deviating. I just wanted, when you were calling out Snape for being a bad dude, I wasn't sure if you knew.
What happened?
Never mind. All right. We haven't really landed on where Pecan falls. I suppose
He's like, the Pecan Pie is like this Professor Snape. Lives forever, but only in our hearts. Does he die? Is that the thing? I'm so sorry somebody hasn't finished the books or the movies like me, but you're giving me the vibes that Professor Snape dies.
Your knowledge base is so minimal on Harry Potter. It is hilarious to me.
Who kills him?
I'm not going to tell you anything. One of these days, you might just happen to watch or
Does
read
Harry
the
Potter
books.
kill him? And then he's like, ugh, 50 points for Gryffindor.
All right. On that note, we're not even going to recap where all our pies landed. If you disagree or agree or would like to suggest any sort of topics for us to be discussing and sorting, you can reach Katie at @KatieReed on Twitter. You can reach me at Belated Media on Twitter. Thank you all so much for joining us for this pie-themed episode of The Sorting Hat. Bye, y'all.
Bye. Let's go get some pie.
Yo, yes. House of Pies.
Oh my gosh.
Done.